So hell is a bad place. We all know that already, but it seems that many people have their own depictions of it. I'm your host Andrew, and today I found the top 10 scary versions of hell that will terrify you. Let's get right into it. Number 10, Swedenborg's hell. In the mid-18th century, the renowned scientist and philosopher Emanuel Swedenborg published a book that would shake the foundations of traditional religious beliefs. In this book, Swedenborg claimed that there was not just one heaven and one hell, but multiple versions of each. While his 3 versions of heaven remained kind of similar, his depictions of the underworld were vastly different. In some versions of hell, the damned would be trapped in big decaying cities rife with violence, similar to the dystopian city of New York City in the movie Escape from New York. Demons and lost souls shared houses and would spend all day beating each other, fighting and getting drunk, and robbing one another in the streets. In more extreme versions of these hells, every building would be a brothel where patrons were forced to copulate in excrement while the city burned around them. Other types of hell that Swedenborg described included dark forests crawling with beasts, dank caves, and endless deserts. But the most revolutionary aspect of Swedenborg's visions was his insistence that all of us carry our own personal hell around with us. According to Swedenborg, when we die, all that happens is that we start literally inhabiting it, rather than just being mentally stuck there. This concept of a personal hell that we carry with us throughout our lives is a truly terrifying thought. It only just suggests that our actions and choices in life have a direct impact on the afterlife, and that the suffering we experience in this life is only a small taste of the eternal torment that awaits us after death. It also raises questions about the role of forgiveness, redemption, and the possibility of escape from one's personal hell, if we can even do that to begin with. Number 9, Saint Teresa of Avila's hell. The great 16th century Saint Teresa of Avila was a Carmelite nun and a theologian. In her autobiography, The Interior Castle, she described a vision of hell she believed God gave her to help her turn away from her sins. According to Teresa, the entrance to hell seemed to be through a long narrow pass, kinda like a furnace, but very low, dark, and close. The ground seemed to be saturated with water, mere mud, and foul odors, covered with loathsome vermin. At the end of the pass was a hollow place in the wall, like a closet. In that she saw herself confined. She states that this image was even pleasant to behold in comparison to what she felt there. Teresa felt a fire in her soul that she couldn't describe, and her bodily sufferings were endurable. She also describes that there would be no intermission nor any end to them. She also saw the punishment of certain sins and how the devils tear the flesh with red-hot pincers. Number 8, Dante's Inferno. Dante's Inferno was the first part of the epic poem, the Divine Comedy, written in the 14th century, and is considered one of the world's great works of literature. The poem follows Dante's journey through the 9 circles of hell, guided by the poet Virgil. The story begins with a woman, Beatrice, calling for an angel to bring Virgil to guide Dante on his journey, so that he will not be harmed. The 9 circles of hell are arranged in order of entrance and severity, starting with Limbo, where those who never knew Christ exist. Here, Dante encounters Ovid, Homer, Socrates, Aristotle, Julius Caesar, and much more people. The second circle is Lust, where those who are guilty of excessive sexual behavior are punished. Here, Dante encounters Achilles, Paris, Tristan, and Cleopatra. The third circle is Gluttony, where those who overindulge in food and drink are punished. Here, Dante encounters very ordinary people here, not characters from epic poems or god from mythology. The fourth circle is Greed, where those who are hoarded or squandered their money are punished. The fifth circle is Anger, where those who are guilty of anger and violence are punished. The sixth circle is Heresy, where those who rejected religious and or political norms are punished. The seventh circle is Violence, which is further segmented into subcircles or rings. The eighth circle is Fraud, which is made up of those who continuously and willingly commit fraud. The ninth and final circle is Treachery, where Satan himself resides. Dante's journey through the circles of hell is not only a journey through the underworld, but also a journey through the human psyche, and also a commentary on the nature of sin. Each circle represents a different type of sin, and the inhabitants of each circle are punished accordingly. Number 7, the revelation of Sister Menendez. Sister Josefa Menendez, a Spanish nun in the early 20th century, lived a short but very impactful life. She only spent 4 years in a convent before passing away at the age of 33, but during that time she experienced a vision of hell that would change the way many people thought about the afterlife. Sister Menendez felt compelled compelled by God to write down her vision of hell, something she found to be very difficult and an uncomfortable task. Despite her reluctance, she wrote about her vision of the underworld and has become one of the most disturbing and heartbreaking depictions of hell ever recorded. Her versions of hell included long dark corridors, internal fires, and standard ironic punishments. But what sets her vision apart is the mental torment that the souls in hell have to endure. According to Sister Menendez, those in hell lose the ability to feel love, happiness, or anything other than cruelty and misery. They are trapped in a state of constant disrepair and hopelessness, which makes their physical sufferings even more unbearable. In one particularly haunting passage, she writes about a soul that cried out for the ability to love again and to witness even one small act of kindness in the entire hell. Unfortunately, in her vision, that is impossible. The damned are not only doomed to suffer eternal physical misery, but they are also cursed with eternal mental agony. This aspect of Sister Menendez's vision of hell is particularly striking because it challenges the traditional idea of punishment that is solely based on physical suffering. Instead, her vision suggests that the true horror of hell is the mental anguish and the loss of ability to feel love and happiness. It's also a reminder that our actions in life have consequences that extend far beyond our physical existence, and that the afterlife is not just a punishment for our sins, but also a reflection of the state of our souls. Number 6, Saint Faustina's visions. Sister Faustina Kowalska, a Polish nun, had a vision of hell that would change the way many people thought about the afterlife as well. As ordered by God, she visited hell and saw the kinds of torture suffered by the damned. According to her, the first torture is the loss of God. The second is perpetual remorse of conscience. The third is that one's condition will never change. The fourth is a fire that penetrates the soul without destroying it. The fifth is continual darkness and suffocating smell. The sixth is the constant company of Satan. And the seventh is horrible disrepair and the hatred of God. But Sister Faustina's vision of hell is not limited to these general torments. She also says that there are special torments for particular souls and that the sufferings are indescribable. Each soul undergoes terrible agony related to the manner of which they sinned. In the hump of our list, we have Sister Lucy of Fatima's hell. Sister Lucy isn't a saint, but she is one of the visionaries of one of the most important private revelations of the 20th century. In 1917, she was one of the 3 children to have claimed to have experienced several visions of the Blessed Virgin Mary. She says Mary showed her a vision of hell as well, which she later described in her memoirs. Sister Lucy's description of the vision of hell is truly terrifying. She describes it as a vast sea of fire with demons and souls of the damned. The souls were like transparent burning embers, all blackened or burnished bronze, having human form. They were floating about in the conflagration that now raised into the air by flames which issued from within themselves, together with great clouds of smoke. Now they fell back on every side like sparks in huge fires without weight or equilibrium, amid shrieks and groans of pain and despair, which horrified her and made her tremble in fright. The demons were distinguished by their terrifying and repellent likeness to frightful and unknown animals, black and transparent like burning coals. They were a stark contrast to the souls of the damned, which only added more horror and fear to the vision. Number 4, Dryhthelm's hell. Dryhthelm was an Englishman who in the late 7th century had one of the scariest near-death experiences ever recorded. Put to paper by celebrated early English historian St. Bede the Venerable, it now reads like a sort of how-to for frightening young children. The vision starts with Dryhthelm walking between 2 valleys. In one, all-consuming fire rages, while in the other, violent hail and snow beat down endlessly. In each valley, thousands of sinners suffer the heat or cold until it gets so bad that they leap into the other, whereupon they continue to suffer in a slightly different way. Initially, Dryhthelm mistakes this for hell, but it's told it's really purgatory. Hell itself is much worse, but this is a similar vision of it. After much walking, Dryhthelm finds himself at the rim of a great pit, and under choking darkness, globes of black flame hang in the air, rising out of the burning pit, then falling back in. Each globe contains a single human soul trapped forever in a burning agony without even the other damned for company. At this point, Dryhthelm ends his vision by being attacked by demons and running away to heaven, which for all its niceness can't even begin to compete with the lonely horrors of this hell. Number 3, St. John Bosco's hell. St. John Bosco, a prominent Catholic saint who lived in the 19th century, claimed to have had a dream in 1868 about the horrors of hell. His vivid and terrifying description of the underworld is a chilling reminder of the eternal consequences of our actions in this life. As soon as St. John Bosco crossed the threshold of hell, he felt an indescribable terror and dared not to take another step. Ahead of him, he could only see something like an immense cave, which gradually disappeared into the bowels of the mountains that were behind it. pit. The cave was ablaze with a fire that was not of this world. The entire cave, including the walls, the ceiling, the floor, iron, stones, wood, and coal, was a glowing white with temperatures reaching thousands of degrees. But this fire did not incinerate or consume. It only brought pain and suffering. St. John Bosco struggled to find the words to even describe the cavern's horror. His guide in the dream sees his hand, force it open, and press it against the first of the 1,000 walls. The sensation was so utterly excruciating that St. John Bosco leaped back with a scream and found himself sitting up in bed. The pain was so real that when he woke up, his hand was swollen and stinging. He even noticed that the skin of his palm had peeled off. It is important to note that St. John Bosco mentioned that he has not tried to frighten people too much with his description, and that he has not described these things in all their horror as he saw them. He understands that no mortal can comprehend the true horrors of hell, and that is why he describes it in multiple symbols throughout his passage. Number 2, the Vision of Wetti. The Vision of Wetti is an ancient account of a German monk's journey into the depths of hell. Written in the 9th century, it describes the horrific punishments and torments that await the sinners in the afterlife. One of the most striking aspects of this version of hell is the obsession with sexuality. The angel who guides the monk on his journey repeatedly mentions and condemns sodomy, equating it to a plague. Among the punishments witnessed, Wetti sees individuals having their genitals burned with fire, women being flogged naked, and adulterers tied together in the nude. The most severe punishment is reserved for the great emperor Charlemagne, who is tied to a stake and tormented by an animal eternally ripping out his genitals. The graphic depiction of genital destruction is the climax of Wetti's vision, and it's truly horrifying for those who can imagine it. The account serves as a reminder of the consequences of one's actions in life and the importance of living a virtuous one. Number 1, the Apocolypse of Paul. The Apocalypse of Paul is a disturbing and graphic depiction in the afterlife, believed to have been written in the 3rd century, and it delves deep into the horrors of hell. The vision presented in the text describes a world where the damned are split between 2 rivers, one of fire and one of ice, and they are subjected to unimaginable torment. Those in the river of fire face piercing iron hooks, stones smashed in their faces, and even being eaten alive by worms. Those in the river of ice have their limbs cut off and are left to be devoured by vermin. So you really can't win whatever river you decide to go down. And the punishment doesn't stop there, as the text also describes specific forms of suffering for those deemed immoral by the author, such as homosexuals being thrown in a pit, and women who lost their virginity before marriage being chained in red hot irons and dragged away by abusive angels. And it's not that anyone else escapes these horrors. People are even tortured for just swearing, for having money, and for not fasting properly. The text suggests that the entire human race since the dawn of time is suffering in this hell, leading the reader to only question the concept of Christian forgiveness. Is it real? It is a disturbing and graphic depiction of the afterlife that will leave a lasting impression if you decide to read it in its entirety. Well, these are the top 10 scary versions of hell that will terrify you. What do you guys think about this list? Leave a comment down below with your thoughts, but don't forget to like and subscribe to this video for some more content. I'm Heroes Andrew, and I hope you guys have a scary day.